Greetings, everyone, and fellow students and learners interested in the 7 Habits of Highly Effective by Stephen Covey. My name is Alan Duncan, and tonight I'll be talking about habit number 3. First things first. Now, we've talked about the first two habits already: to be proactive and to start with the end in mind. Starting with the end in mind is setting our goal. And now, this step, first things first, is us proceeding to manage our time to achieve the goals that we established in habit 2. So we're going to be talking about first things first is the habit of time management. So we're going to manage our business and our personal time to achieve our goals. Now, to do this, we're going to be talking about something called the time management matrix. Where does our time go during the day? In general, we can break the time that we spend each day into 4 quadrants. Now, we have it arranged as a matrix, so there's a column, which is vertical, and a row. Now, the columns are shown there as indicating, if you look at the top, there's 2 words, urgent and not urgent. So the first column represents items that are urgent, and the second column, items that are not urgent. Now, if we look down along the rows, we have items in the first row, which we see there written. You see the word to the left, which is important, is the first row, and then the second row is not important, items that occur during the day which are important and not important. So essentially, that says to us that our important items are going to be in the first row, quadrants 1 and quadrants 2. So let's talk about quadrant 1, items that are urgent, and in quadrant 2 are items that are not urgent. Both of these quadrants represent items that are important. So let's talk about what would be items that are urgent and important. Well, they would be things like a crisis, a problem that really needs to be solved, pressing problems that are there today. We see them, they need to be fixed. Your car is not working, you need to get it into the garage and get the car fixed so you can get to work. That's a urgent problem. Things that have a deadline that need to be done by a certain time, those are urgent, and projects that we work on that need to be done now, those are urgent. Now, what are items that are important and not urgent? They're shown in quadrant 2. In general, when you look at this, and I show it in yellow, everything that's there is very, very important, but not urgent, and it always involves planning. Items like preparation, preparing for something, thinking forward and trying to prevent problems, prevention. Values, clarifying our values to ourselves, to making sure we're always heading in the right direction. It's something that we don't have to do, but something that's very important. It's not in our face every day, but we have to do it and plan it. Relationship building, in other words, spending some time to think about how do we make our relationship with other people better for both our personal and our business dealings. Okay, so I show that quadrant yellow, quadrant 2, as it's a very, very important thing, and that is the thing to work on prevention and planning. In quadrant 2 are the things that really push us forward into success. but they are things that are not urgent. And we must really act on ourselves to make sure we do them. Things that are urgent are acting on us all the time. In quadrant 1, they're always in our face, problems in our face, pressing, needing to be done. Quadrant 2 is something we have to plan. Both are important. Now let's look at the things that are not important. Quadrant 3 and quadrant 4 are items that are not important. Quadrant 3 is the quadrant where things are urgent but not important. For example, interruptions. Some calls that come in are not important, but they're there. We have to answer the phone in general. And we answer the phone usually all the time, and maybe we didn't really need to. It wasn't that important. Some mail is not important. Some reports are not important, and some pressing matters are just not important. They would come under quadrant 3. But they're urgent. We need to decide on them now, or they're occurring in real time right now. A call is a good example. Generally, you have to answer your phone. So that call comes in, you need to address it. But maybe you didn't need to because you couldn't really decide. It's not something you can decide ahead of time, but it's there, so we call it urgent. Now let's look at quadrant 4. These are items that are not important and not urgent. What is shown here for quadrant 4? Trivia. Fooling with trivia. Things like busy work, just to keep busy during the day, but they're not not really accomplishing anything. Some of the mail that we read is just not important and not urgent. Some calls. Watching TV excessively, for example, would just be something that is not urgent and not important. So, in general then, in order for us to succeed in accomplishing our goals, what we really want to focus on is trying to get more of the things that are occurring in quadrant 4 that are not important and not urgent, and move them into activities in quadrant 2 that are important but not urgent. In other words, in quadrant 2, we really have to act on our own initiative. And prevention, planning, and preparation come under those categories. They're things that we have to do, but they're not being required or driven by someone outside of us. And quadrant 2 is the most important quadrant for achieving personal success. So the thing that we want to try to do is move more items out of quadrant 4, get rid of the trivia, get rid of the watching TV, watch out for reading too much mail or too much internet. Take that time and spend it in quadrant 2, planning and preparation. Things that are important but not urgent. I would just like to read a little bit on what Covey says about habit 3. Again, habit 3 is put first things first. This is the habit of personal management, which involves organizing and managing your time according to personal priorities you established in habit 2, beginning with the end in mind, thinking about what was your end or your goal. Basically, we spend our time in one of 4 ways as illustrated in the time management matrix. This matrix defines activities as urgent or not urgent and important or not important. With careful analysis, most people discover that they spend far too much time responding to the urgent crises of quadrants 1 and 3, escaping occasionally for survival to the not urgent, unimportant time wasters of quadrant 4. The ideal to work toward is eliminating time spent in quadrants 3 and 4 and increasing time spent in quadrant 2. As you invest more time on the planning, prevention, and relationship building activities of quadrant 2, you'll find that you spend far less time picking up the broken pieces in quadrant 1, or reacting to the urgent demands of other people in quadrant 3. Well, with that, we're at the end of our first 3 habits, and I would just like to summarize here the 7 habits that we've worked on, or the 7 habits and what we're going to be working on. Now you can see that we have covered habits 1, 2, and 3. So we've covered 1, to be proactive, 2, to start with the end in mind, and 3, first things first. These are the habits of independence. Practicing and achieving these will get us to a state of independence where we can do things on our own. Now the next habits that we'll be discussing, habits 4, to think win-win, habit 5, seek first to understand and then to be understood, and habit 6, to synergize, are the habits to create successful interdependence between ourselves and others so that we can get more done together as a community and as a team working together than we could possibly do on our own. Okay, with that then, we're at the end of the first 3 habits, and next time we'll be talking about habit number 4, to think win-win. Okay, that's it for tonight. This is Alan Duncan saying goodbye on October 19th in the year 2011.